Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order, welcome to Panwo TV. Well, it's been 4 days now since the conference, Roswell 70, the only conference that I know of, the only public event outside the United States of America to mark the 70th anniversary of the Roswell UFO incident. And I'll tell you what, I'm still on a high from it. I keep thinking to myself, how could it have been better? What could I have changed to make it better? What else could have happened that didn't happen to make it better? And you know what? I can't think of a single thing. It couldn't have been better. It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. This second video in this series is the lecture by Colin Woolford, which I'll be playing in a minute. Now, it was Voltaire, the famous philosopher, who actually said, if you believe in freedom, then you have to be willing to uphold passionately the freedom of speech for people you disagree with, even to provide a platform for those you disagree with. Well, this is certainly the case with me and Colin, because Colin is going to talk about probably the most controversial issue in all of exopolitics over the last 20 years. And that is the alien autopsy film. It is related to the Roswell crash because it is allegedly a film of a post-mortem examination of an extraterrestrial that appeared 22 years ago in England. And it's a 15-minute silent movie, and Colin is going to tell us all about it. There's been a lot of debate about what it is, what caused it, is it real or not, if it's not real, who did it, etc, etc, etc. And well, I'll put a link in the description box to a radio interview I did with Colin about this subject, and he talks about his various ideas there, and we totally disagree. But he's a great friend of mine, and I really love him, and it's really great to have him at the conference. And I don't see why people who disagree about things can't get along well personally, because we're adults, aren't we? Come on. So it was very interesting to have him there, and the audience really were fascinated by what he had to say, as was I. Now, Colin did something else as well, because Colin actually has been to Roswell. When he got to the conference on Saturday, he'd just come back actually from Roswell itself, where there was the 70th anniversary UFO festival, and he brought back some copies of the Roswell Daily Record from today, a modern edition of the Roswell Daily Record, a special edition to do with the 70th anniversary. So before I give you Colin, let's just examine that particular publication, shall we? Right, well, here we have a copy of a newspaper, but it's not just any newspaper, it's the Roswell Daily Record. Now, as you know, as I've explained in a previous film, the Roswell Daily Record was the newspaper that broke the story of the flying disc being captured and being in possession of the army. It broke the story on the 8th of July 1947. Well, 70 years later, that same newspaper is covering the events of the 70th anniversary of that momentous moment, to which their publication, their journal, played such a vital role. Now, this is actually this is not the actual main newspaper. This is the 2017 special UFO Festival edition. So this is kind of it's Vision magazine. It's kind of it's a supplement, and it says here, see, this bit here says Roswell Daily Record. Here we are, Roswell 70th, celebrating the 1947 Roswell Daily Record UFO incident 70th anniversary. Now, as I said in the previous film, as far as I know, apart from the event that I organised at the weekend, outside Roswell, I've not heard of any other event celebrating this particular anniversary. You see here on the front, it's very interesting. We have sort of like old style comic type front. There's the old crashed UFO there at night, and I think that's Mac Brazel, the rancher. There's this woman in a spacesuit here with some kind of, it looks like a smartphone, and there's this strange curly kind of thing here, which is some sort of monster. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what that is. But let's have a look inside anyway, see what's in here. And we have here, well, there's some ads here. Oh, this is very interesting. See, this is an advertisement. This is a newspaper ad here for the Central Valley Electric Cooperative Incorporated. Your source of power and great service for 80 years. And this is a local electricity power company. And guess what it says here? Look, we've been here longer than the aliens. And so they're celebrating their 80th anniversary. They've been here 10 years longer than the aliens. So this is a joke. This is a joke on the Roswell incident being incorporated into something completely unrelated in an advert. This is very, very interesting because it just shows how deep in the culture of the local area the Roswell incident has driven, how much it affects the local area, how much it affects the culture of the local area. It really is a big part of the way they do things. And as I said in my latest UFO Disclosure 2017 video, there's nothing immoral about that. If you don't like it, go to Stratford-on-Avon, tell them to get rid of all the Shakespeare stuff. Because William Shakespeare plays a very similar role in Stratford-on-Avon as the UFO incident does in Roswell. Here we have an advert for an Italian restaurant, which is there's nothing here about UFOs. This is planes past expected. Now we'll move on to this next page here. This is the editorial. Here we are, Roswell Daily Record's Vision magazine, and here's the editorial. Just basically all newspapers have this sort of thing as a contents list, and this is for Inn of the Mountain Gods, and I think this is like I think they've got like country music there. I think. So on the next page, here we go. See the crash that echoed all around the world, and it's got here a special feature here on. It's part of the culture section. It's got here a big thing about aliens. There you see there's pictures of people dressed as aliens. What's this? Stephen R. Brackett. It's psychiatry. Nothing here about aliens. That's just another ad, and it carries on over here, and it basically talks about this is basically by someone called Christina Stock, and here we have some more advertisements here. Centric, don't know what that is. Home planning. This is like some kind of maybe a Civil War recreation thing. More pictures of aliens. Oh, here we are, the Roswell incident. Now they have some other people here. There's Chase Klutzer, who is the MC of the event, and I've heard her somewhere before. Alien Chase. Here we go. The Alien Chase, Roswell Convention Centre. And this is the thing about the Roswell Festival. There's actually more than one event, as Colin has said. I mean, Colin, who's the speaker here, he actually went there and he attended this festival, so he saw it firsthand. And here we have interview with Stanton Friedman. And there we go. So here's a picture of Stan there. More ads here without any alien themes. And this is the UFO event of the century. So I'm just checking the thing's framed properly. Yeah, we have a 70th UFO Fest, 70th anniversary UFO Festival. And here's the various thing here. Air National Guard Band, Free Summer Outdoor Movie, Flash Gordon. Oh, got one. That's a good film. Alien Chase, Alien Pet Costume Contest, Alien Costume Contest, Electric Light Parade, UFO Lectures, Free Alien Hat Making. Oh my god, I wish I could have been there. I really do. Let me carry on over here. Oh, there's Don Schmidt. And there's someone else, Jesse Marcel III. I think that's Jesse Marcel Jr.'s son, who I know is, I've heard that he's involved in things like this. And there's the old car ads here. Oh, so he carries on over there. And we have here, who's that? Planetarium. There's a planetarium in Roswell. Well, of course there's a planetarium in Roswell. And here we go. There's another conference. There's several different conferences. Nick Redfern is there. There's another sort of more skeptic conference, as Colin was talking about. There's Michael Heiser and Nick Redfern, who are at this other one. It's a controversial UFO conference. I've never heard of a. I have never heard of a conference that was not controversial when it comes to UFOs. The Challenge ET conference that takes the place. A different group of experts are truth seekers. I'm going to talk about their research that may surprise avid believers in the UFO, in the alleged UFO crash outside Roswell. I think that's the more sort of like skeptic one. It's got Greg Bishop, Jack Brewer, Michael Heiser, yeah, and Nick Redfern. Now Nick Redfern is not. He actually does believe in the ETH, but he's sort of like quite faulty in his attitudes towards it. Okay, alien patriotic pastries available at Ellie's Bistro Bakery. That's right. That's good. So that's where Sophie and Chris went to get the cake made. And here we go. Here's another Whelan's Yucca Emporium. This is this is a bloody garden centre. And you see here, it's got a little alien face on it. So it's, again, the alien thing has really gone under the skin of the local culture. And here's the schedule of events for Roswell, more schedules of events, adverts for burgers, more schedule of events. Here we go, Nifty's 50s, right, here we go. This is an advert from Roswell here. Cat eye glasses, rockabilly dresses and shirts, 50s music, fedora hats, New Mexico products. And what's it got there? It's got a little alien, it's got a little spaceship. So that says a lot, doesn't it? Okay, we're on the centre pages now. Brent's eyewear, nothing alien there. And there's more about schedule. And there we are, here's the Roswell Galacticon. The comic convention at Roswell. More schedules. Oh, and we got the car ads. Now it's funny because like this is exactly like the car ads you get in the Oxford Mail. I mean, these are quite common in all local newspapers, it seems. So Desert Sun, Roswell, and you can get these various cars here. And so that's very similar to the car ad I'm familiar with. Now, local theatre company celebrates outer space. And we have here an actor called Boyd Barrett recreating Orson Welles' 1938 radio show War of the Worlds. Yes, that's right. Nick Redford. See, this is just a continuation here. It's Joseph Jordan, Malone, Nick Redford. And here, this is a map of Roswell here, just telling you where everything is. And of course, you have the Roswell Museum and Arts Centre, and International UFO Museum and Research Centre, of course. There's your map, so you can find your way around where everything is. Roswell and Galacticon Sci-Fi Film Fest, yeah. Oh, and Pirates of the Caribbean. Guest of honour is actor Martin Kleber from Pirates of the Caribbean. What's a festival without music? And look here, look, War of the Worlds, and it looks like a radio with an alien face. Here we go. Cooking country folks who are only 6 minutes south of downtown Roswell. French fried pies, mountain or Arbuckle Mountain. Sorry, why am I talking in a West Country accent when this is sort of like the American Wild West? I don't know. More about culture. And this is vein treatment. That's a cosmetic surgery clinic. Oh my god, now there's an alien and a half. It's Nick Pope. It's the real fox mulder, Nick Pope, returning to Roswell for the 3rd time. He did go there, actually. Yeah. And here's some more interesting people who are going to be at these various events. Richard Dolan, Linda Moulton Howe, Nick Pope is there, of course. Yeah. Have you heard of the sci-fi ROM? A new literature subgenre takes off in sci-fi. What's that? Sci-fi romance, I suppose. Let's have a look. So Autoglass. This is Autoglass repair and replacement of Roswell. And this is Wild Willie's RV park. An RV is like a. I think it stands for. Is it recreational vehicle? It refers to caravans and camper vans and things like that. And of course, it's aliens. There's the flag. There's a symbol of New Mexico there, and there's these flying saucers and aliens and things like that. You've got to, haven't you? You've got to do it. They can't resist it. Check I'm still framed properly. Yeah, I am. And more speakers here. Courtney Brown, Alejandro Rojas, Smith Payne, Peppers Grill and Bar, and over here we have Character Count. Books again, Out of the World Bargains. This again is a bookshop with alien and space themes. Anderson Museum of Contemporary Art. Come for the aliens, stay for the art. That's good. And the skeptics are going crazy saying, it's awful, they're doing this. It's an industry, they're making fortune, it's a money game, it's a complete scam to take money from people. Well, as I said, so is Shakespeare then. Right. S.E. Smith, a recent sci-fi rom-com, romantic comedy, I suppose. Science fiction romantic comedy. And more burgers. And here's an article by someone called Donald Burleson. Does the UFO question really matter? Yes, it does. So, quite so. And here we have other speakers. Daryl Sims, I know. Travis Walton, of course. Very famous UFO witness. And over here we have, what's this? It's a cartoon here, look. It's about the cat that's taken into a shelter when people move away. Oh, that's sad. And here we go, out of this world at these locations. Farmers County Markets. And of course you have the aliens, don't you? So that's it, the Vision magazine from the Roswell Daily Record. Thanks Colin for bringing these back. He brought back a whole load of copies of these to show at the conference. So thank you very much for those, Colin. And now, all I can suggest is you hear from Mr. Colin Woolford himself. The disclosure, you could say you got in there first. You were one of the pioneers who actually went and you were into disclosure before disclosure happened. And when you're there, there's also some books you can peruse, including Roswell Rising, as I was saying earlier, and also some very rare signed copies of Halt in Woodbridge by Peter Robbins. And they're very, very rare because both Peter Robbins and Larry Warren have signed them. Larry Warren was Peter Robbins' co-author on Left Out East Gate, the original, I think, most important book about the Rendlesham Forest incident. But for various reasons, which I won't go into now, you're not going to get Peter Robbins and Larry Warren ever signing the same book again. So that's extremely rare. Just £10, ladies and gentlemen, from the store there, Holding Wood. I myself personally played a major role in the production of that book because a lot of the information Peter draws on comes from my film, Colonel Holt Returns to Rendlesham Forest. Now, Miles, are we all set technically? I'm just going to start my camera.
Testing. Do we need that higher? No?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Let me get
Colin.
a bit higher. Okay, that's fine, that's okay.
Colin Woolford here. Well, firstly, he has been to Roswell recently, so that makes it very, very important. And he has a very interesting story to tell about some of the most controversial elements of the Roswell incident.
Or was it Roswell? Yeah, well, that's the whole point.
Colin Woolford, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. And as he was just saying, I have actually just come back from Roswell. Can you believe it? I flew back last night, but actually Roswell was actually in Las Vegas for a couple of days, as you do, you know. When you're in Roswell, you've got to go somewhere else. And well, I just want to talk first. I mean, my main subject is the alien autopsy, which is a controversial piece of footage that appeared in 1995. But before going on, and it's been tied in with the whole Roswell thing, and there's been claims that it was, well, it's not actually the same being as the Roswell, which is like a four-fingered, typical grey type being. This was a six-fingered alien. I assume it's an alien. Some people think it's a human type. You know, it's been experimented on and things like that. But I've been interested in that for a long time. But being 70th anniversary of Roswell, I thought, well, if you're going to go to Roswell, if you're going to go to any time, you're going to do it on the 70th anniversary. So, I work at the airport, so it's not as if I'm made of money or anything. I do get to these places by standby on aircraft, and it takes about 10 hours to get to Dallas. If you want to go to Roswell, this is just for general, if in the future you ever want to do it yourself, the best way to get there, I would say, would be to fly to Dallas Fort Worth. It's about a 10-hour flight from Heathrow. From Dallas, they have about 3 flights a day. It's actually a very small aircraft, which I sort of hadn't really taken into consideration. So I was very lucky, and I was with my friend Philip, who's not here at the moment, but we were going, I got there a few days earlier, basically to attend a meeting, a tour with Dennis Balthazar, who's he worked at the Roswell Museum. He now does tours, and you have to book in advance, and it's a two-hour tour. He'll take you around Roswell to the various sites and everything. So I got there, I think his last tour was on the Wednesday, so I thought, well, I better get to Roswell a bit early. So we got there on the Monday, as I say, and it was a late night flight, and I was so sure that I wouldn't get on. I was practically praying to get on this flight so we can do this tour tomorrow, and amazingly there was like 2 empty seats, and we managed to get on the flight. So that was, you know, a real relief, until it took off, because there was like some sort of electrical storm and I felt a bit like those aliens back in 1947. You know, there is stories that they were hit by an electrical storm, a super bolt, I've heard, but there's also claims that, you know, there's all sorts of claims about there being more than one craft, 2 hit each other, there was an electrical storm, did we bring it down with radar? Any of these things are possible, and there's a lot of confusion about, what is Roswell, because there's the whole corona thing, so technically it's not really Roswell. And then you've got my interest subject, which was the claim of the alien autopsy, which was would have been at least a month earlier, if you believe the cameraman said. He said it was a crash on 31st of May 1947. So when we did the tour then, so we got to Roswell, and it wasn't as I imagined it, and I think my friend will say the same, that it was we were expecting a very small, like a one-horse town sort of thing, but obviously that's not quite the case now. It's actually much bigger than that, albeit everything's sort of linked by one sort of large road. I chose a hotel which was in between all the events, because believe it or not, there was like 4 events going on there. There was quite a sort of sceptical conference which went on in the Roswell Mall, and that was done by Guy Malone, and he talked along with other people like Nick Redfern, you may have heard of, Michael Scheiser, I think it is, Greg Bishop. They were sort of addressing the angle that, there was no aliens crashing at Roswell, but it was experiments of back in, like advanced German aircraft, possible human experimentation of POWs from Nazi Germany, Japan, and I caught a couple of those talks. They started like a day early on the Thursday, but it was coming from a very sort of sceptical point, and I think some of the speakers as well also have a sort of Christian, sort of almost fundamental background, and I think there was one or two talks that addressed the idea that aliens are actually demons, and there's that whole, obviously in the Bible about in America, it's a very controversial thing. They do take the sort of biblical thing literally, and that these aren't actually aliens, but they're actual demonic creatures. And if you look at that picture, people might think, that doesn't look. It looks kind of a bit scary. There was a talk, a sceptical talk. There was also talks at the Roswell Museum where you had Don Schmidt. If you don't know Don Schmidt and Chris Carey, they did the book. They looked into Roswell. As Ben was saying earlier, and one of the first researchers on the Roswell story was Stanton Friedman. But at the Roswell Museum, they had like Don Schmidt. They also had Daryl Sims, who you may know. He talks about things like alien implants, but he did one of my favourite talks actually was from Daryl Sims. Another event there was the actual Roswell incident itself, which is just plug that. That's what we got for the Roswell incident, and where you had like some of the top speakers. So you had like Linda Moulton Howe, Richard Dolan, and who else did we have? All your favourite, all your Nick Pope, yeah, Nick Pope was there. I didn't actually attend this talk, sorry Nick, I did say hello. But mainly I wanted to see Linda and of course Richard Dolan. They're two of my favourite speakers, and I did get to ask Linda some questions. And another event was at the convention centre. They had Peter Robbins there, and they had the aggressionists, whose name escapes me. So there was a whole host of events going on, and it was very difficult to actually get from one place to the other. Even though I positioned myself, I hadn't had a car. Well, the thing was, we didn't have a car, so we were sort of relying on walking. But there was some sweet lady who called Joanne Maynard, and I want to say a big thank you to her, because she actually turned up at the airport, and I had arranged to meet her a day later, but she somehow knew that we were going to get on the flight and met us at the airport, which was very sweet of her, and she gave us a whole bundle of goodies in a hamper bag. So she was literally driving us around Roswell. So I'm just going to really thank Joanne, because she went really beyond the call of duty and really looked after us, and she was brilliant company. So, and she's kind of like a targeted individual, so you might want to look out to Joanne Maynard stuff. So big credit to her. She's half Native American Indian. So that was Roswell, basically. I should show you. I know that Ben showed the picture of the newspaper, and that was the official. That was the first. That was the second one. That's the first one. That's a $5 copy you can get from the museum there. And it's worth checking out the museum. I mean, there's quite a lot actually to do in Roswell. They had a festival. People get dressed up as you expect, and if you like that sort of thing. So something for your children and alien costumes. They had like a planetarium there where you had music shows, so you could see like music of Led Zeppelin, music of U2, a 45-minute show at the planetarium. So there was, it really kept us busy, not only with Dennis's tour, who, we met up for the 2-hour tour, and he basically took us not just the UFO sites, but also looking at some of the, like the cowboys and the history of the area and the various places where, the various people lived in the town. So that really made it better to get a good overview of the whole Roswell thing. And as I just showed you the paper there, they now have, obviously the Roswell Daily Record's still going, and there's a speaker declares UFO crash in Roswell, and that's a picture of Courtney Brown, who you might know from remote viewing. He's behind, the main person's behind the Farsight Institute. It's worth looking into his stuff, because if you believe in remote viewing and what it can do, he did a remote viewing with about 3 or 4 people, trained remote viewers, and published that earlier this year, and it's quite fascinating, and it does sort of match up to the idea that there was an alien crash in Roswell. He's also done one just recently, literally a couple of weeks ago, where they remote view below Area 51. So if you like that sort of information, there's some really sort of very interesting stuff, what they remote viewed at Area 51. So just going to do a plug for Courtney there, because I didn't actually get a chance to see his talk. There was so much going on, and I've actually seen all his remote viewing videos, and I think they did show that the first day. But anyway, that's the Roswell Daily Record, who I think we've pretty much covered it every day. I didn't catch the last paper or so, but I've got 2 here if people want to have a look during the break. There's also some free papers that are in the audience I put out earlier, which just basically go through all the speakers and everything like that. So that was our trip to, it was very hot out there, I should say. I mean, I know it's hot here today, but it was like 100 degrees, up to 110 maybe. But I know I really enjoyed it, and I got a chance to get lots of photos and speak to people like Linda Moulton Howe, Don Schmidt, and sort of ask their opinion about this subject actually, because I've always had a long interest with the alien autopsy and didn't think that there was probably more to it than meets the eye. It's funny because I haven't seen the evidence that it was a hoax. There's been lots of claims, and maybe many of you don't even know what the alien autopsy is, so I'll go into a little bit of that. But anyway, I'll just play a little bit of the video. It's 18 minutes long, well, about 16 I think, and it came out in 1995. It was quite a very controversial thing at the time, but it was actually had massive audience figures. It was shown in America on the Fox network with Jonathan Frakes, who you may know from Star Trek. And this is not the only footage. There is an autopsy which is quite graphic. A lot of people thought, well, is that real? Is it, that's pretty graphic work for a special effects person to do. Since then, someone has come forward to say that they've hoaxed it, albeit 11 years later. But again, we still haven't seen the evidence, and this should just show there's a strange, crystal type thing coming out of the body there. This is actually footage that is actually from the better version that someone gave me, so I just wanted to show that, because there's a poorer copy that you can just go on YouTube and watch, but this one's actually far clearer, and you can actually see much more detail. So I don't always get a chance to show it, ironically, when I'm talking about it, apart from showing images. So I think it does help to show you what it actually looks like. There was also another piece of footage which was known as the debris footage. It lasted a couple of minutes, and it was, if you look at this being, it's got 6 fingers basically, and there's the debris footage which has got these 6-finger panels, and there's debris footage which has these sort of, it's writing, but it's looking like ancient, symbols, or this unknown, an alien language, I suppose you could call it, but maybe not so dissimilar, but it's not unrelated to our writing, from the past. So that's just a brief glimpse of what the actual footage looks like. There is, like I say, the debris footage, which does have the 6-finger panels, which links it into that, and that's quite controversial. I mean, the whole Roswell story, this isn't Roswell. I mean, this is my point, which I just want to say that again, because there's been claims that you know, the panels that they found at Roswell, they had these, it's very small, like I-beams, whereas the ones that we see in this footage are much larger, and the actual writing is actually pronounced. It's coming out of the actual debris. So, I'll just cut that there and just carry on with my... I'm going to cut some bits out of this presentation just because it's it would be too long to actually go into all of it, but I'm going to just give you the basic overview of the events of the alien autopsy. Okay, that's Ray Santilli. So he was the guy who found the footage in '92, and I'll just leave this up there. I won't read it all out. He was born in '58 of the Italian descent. He was basically involved in music. He founded a group. It was Orbital Media Group, a film and television production company. The actual events of the alien autopsy happened in '92, as I say. He was in Ohio, and he was looking for footage of Elvis Presley, or not just Elvis Presley, but old rock and roll film footage, basically. So the early timeline was Ray Santilli and his partner Gary Shoefield. They visited Cleveland around July the 4th, actually. So again, it's the sort of anniversary, I guess. We just had the July the 4th out in the States. This was '92, though, and they were looking for memorabilia. They were visiting the cameraman. Apparently, this is the story. If you believe the story, obviously some people think it was all a hoax. But the cameraman said here he was visiting his son and he saw Ray's advert, because back then we didn't have the internet and all that stuff. It was just the internet was sort of coming along a few years after that, about '94, '95. And they put an advert, as you do in the paper, and like a trade fair. So people came with all their footage and stuff like that. He bought apparently some footage of Elvis. Now it's not clear how truthful Ray is about what parts of the story you can accept and what he's embellished to sort of keep the cameraman identity secret. That's if you believe that it's genuine piece, and I should always keep saying that because obviously people think that it was all a hoax. Now, the cameraman said he had something else he may be interested in. That's Ray, and he said the Roswell film material. So there was some confusion begins, because obviously no one, by obviously the 1990s, we did know about Roswell, and that was the only real case we did, most famous UFO crash. So, I mean, the cameraman claims that he was flown into Roswell, so you would sort of lump it in with that, but obviously it's not the same beings as described in the Roswell incident, and he did say it was May 31st, 1947. Ray was obviously, it's not every day you get a chance to see some alien autopsy footage, so Ray flew to the cameraman's home, which is apparently in Clearwater, Florida. Ray viewed footage of the alien autopsy and possibly others. Mention has also been made of a crash site with cranes and a recovery team, entity screaming and holding devices, and even Truman expecting the scene or behind the viewing window. And you might have just seen there's like a viewing window where you can see someone making notes, or it looks like they're in charge, basically. It's basically an early time now, and so there were said to be 22 reels of 16mm film, each 3 minutes long, and a scrap reel of a further 10 minutes. Down payment for the footage was in 1992. Apparently the cameraman wanted money for his daughter's wedding, so that's quite a lot of money, even though Ray had quite a successful company of getting music work up and licensing various bits and pieces. He still had to sort of, if you believe the story, it took him 3 years to get the footage, all the money in advance, raised for the footage, which is supposedly 100,000, but there's different people have said different things how much was actually involved. There was a guy called Volker Spielberg, not to be confused with Steven Spielberg, and the guy behind Close Encounters, but maybe just a synchronicity. Maybe you need to think, oh well, that's maybe a part of the hoax, and that's why someone else might say that. Ray Santilli, he contacted Philip Mantle in '93 and asked would he be interested in making a UFO documentary. In later weeks he would say he has footage of a UFO crash at Roswell and autopsies of the creatures. So even then Ray wasn't a ufologist, so put that into account. He was just a professional trying to make money, basically. And he was even calling it Roswell. He didn't really know what it was, what that footage showed. He just knew it would be very controversial. but he also knew the value of it. So Philip wanted to see the footage. Philip Mantle was sort of a famous sort of investigator of the alien autopsy footage, and he's still around today, but we disagree obviously on the subject. Now Philip met Ray for the first time in '94 during the Before lecture. Ray had an office nearby. He tells Philip the same story about the cameraman and how he wants to release the footage. Eventually, '94, money is secured to buy the cameraman's footage. January '95, Reg first mentions the alien autopsy on Good Morning with Anne and Nick. In February, March '95, Philip remembers Ray after viewing the Roswell TV film, which starred Karma Clockwood. You may have seen that film, came out in '94. And contacts him once again. He drives down to his office and he's finally shown some film, but it's the tent footage. Now this tent footage, I'm not really go into it, but it was a controversial, really poor piece of footage of filmed in a barn in Bedfordshire, and it's quite clearly a fake, but it got muddled into this subject, and a lot of people not quite sure how that came linked together. I think what happened was that Ray was transferring the footage onto VHS, and someone slipped him this footage, and it really did sort of confuse matters even more. So you can check that out on YouTube, but it's a very poorly filmed, just two people in a barn wearing white coats, and someone's son, a young child, lying on a gurney, and basically got like orange peel for the eyes, but it's all shot in black and white, and it is quite long and monotonous, but nothing like what the footage we now know, the alien autopsy footage. Also, it should be said, over the next couple of months, he would be showing two autopsies and a debris footage. So there's actually a whole lot of autopsy footage that no one has ever seen, another 17 minutes, and that's one of the most controversial things is, well, why has no one, apart from maybe 5 ufologists, seen this other autopsy of the same creature, but its leg is intact? Because if you see the alien autopsy, it's actually got, its leg is obviously scarred or burned through some incident. So, and it was apparently a lot more graphic as well. So you could, that's your first red flag that there's something more to this, that this footage has never been released for some reason. So they were first shown at the Museum of London to about 150 invited guests. I think all your favourites, not all UFO researchers were, but like Nick Pope and stuff like that. Ray, on August 19th, Ray allows principal investigator Philip Mantle to show at the Sheffield Before conference. And August 28th, Channel 4 broadcast the Roswell incident with footage from the alien autopsy. So I think it's important because the cameraman did make this statement. So it wasn't, forget that he was sort of naming names and things like that. So it's very important to address what he actually said. And he called it Operation Anvil. And this is his statement, so I'll read this out. It won't take a couple of minutes or so. I joined the forces in March of 1942 and left in 1952. The 10 years I spent serving my country was some of the best years of my life. My father was in the movie business, which meant he had good knowledge about the workings of cameras and photography. For this reason, I believe I passed a medical that would not normally allow me in due to polio as a child. After my enrolment and training, I was able to use my camera skills and become one of the few dedicated cameramen in the forces. I was sent to many places, and as it was wartime, I fast learned the ability of filming under difficult circumstances. I will not give more detail on my background, only to say that in the fall of 1944, I was assigned to intelligence, reporting to the Assistant Chief of Air Staff. I was moved around depending on the engagement. During my time, I filmed a great deal, including the tests at White Sands, the Manhattan Project Trinity. I remember very clearly receiving the call to go to White Sands in Roswell. I had not long returned from St. Louis, Missouri, where I had filmed the new ramjet, which was known as the Little Henry. It was June the 1st when MacDonald asked me to report to General McMullen. You can see McMullen there on the left there. For a special assignment. I had no experience of working with McMullen, but after talking to him for a few minutes, I knew that I would never wish to be his enemy. This name comes up in the actual Roswell story as well, one of the top men involved. McMullen was straight to the point, no messing. I was ordered to a crash site just southwest of Socorro. This is where allegedly the alien autopsy event happened, southwest of Socorro. It was urgent, and my brief was to film everything in sight, not to leave the debris until it had been removed, and I was to have access to all areas of the site. If the commander in charge had a problem with that, I was told to get them to call McMullen. A few minutes after my orders from McMullen, I received the same instructions from TUI, saying it was a crash of a Russian spy plane. 2 generals in one day, this job was important. I flew out from Andrews with 16 other officers and personnel, mostly medical. We arrived at Wright-Patterson. Wright-Patterson's often linked to the storing of UFO crash retrieval footage and all sorts of other bits, and collected more men and equipment. From there we flew to Roswell on a C-54. When we got to Roswell, we were transported by road to the site. When we arrived, the site had already been cordoned off. From the start, it was plain to see this was no Russian spy plane. It was a large flying saucer on its back, and heat still radiating from the ground around it. The commander on site handed over to the SAC medical team, who was still waiting for Kenny to arrive. However, nothing had been done, as everyone was just waiting for orders. It was decided to wait until the heat subsided before moving in, as the fire was a significant risk. This was made all the worse by the screams of the freak creatures that were lying by the vehicle. And he uses this term freak, which you don't often use nowadays, but it's important. What in God's name they were, no one could tell. But one thing's for sure, they were circus freaks, creatures with no business here. Each had hold of a box which they kept hold of in both arms, close to their chests. They just lay there crying, holding these boxes. It's an illustration from the book Beyond Roswell, if you want to know more about this case. Once my tent had been set up, I started filming immediately. First the vehicle, then the site and debris. At around 6 a.m. it was deemed safe to move in again. Again, the freaks were still crying, and when approached, they screamed even louder. They were protected of their boxes, but we managed to get one loose with a firm strike at the head of a freak with the butt of a rifle. The 3 freaks were dragged away and secured with rope and tape. The other one was already dead. The medical team were reluctant at first to go near these freaks, but as some were injured, they had no choice. Once the creatures were collected, the priority was to collect all debris that could be removed easily, as there was still a risk of fire. This debris seemed to come from exterior struts that were supporting a very small disc on the underside of the craft, which must have snapped off when the disc flipped over. The debris was taken to tent stations for logging, then loaded onto trucks. After 3 days, a full team from Washington came down, and the decision was taken to move the craft inside it, which, because he claims he actually went inside it. The atmosphere was very heavy. It was impossible to stay in longer than a few seconds without feeling very sick. Therefore, it was decided to analyse it back at base, so it was loaded onto a flat top and taken to Wright-Patterson, which is where I joined it. I stayed at Wright-Patterson for a further 3 weeks, working on the debris. I was then told to report to Fort Worth, Dallas, for the filming of an autopsy. Normally, I would not have a problem with this, but it was discovered that the freaks may be a medical threat. Therefore, I was required to wear the same protective suits as the doctors. In a later interview, he did actually claim he did actually remove this while when he was shooting the autopsy. I was required to wear the same protective suits as doctors. It was impossible to handle the camera properly. Loading and focusing was very difficult. In fact, against orders, I removed my suit during the filming. The first 2 autopsies took place in July 1947. It's about a month, I believe, after the crash. If you take it, it's the 31st of May, 47. So I think, one of them actually survived, which I'll go into. After filming, I had several hundred reels. I separated problem reels with required special attention in processing. These I will do later. The first batch was sent through to Washington, and I processed the remainder a few days later. Once the remaining reels had been processed, I contacted Washington to arrange collection of the final batch. Incredibly, they never came to collect or arrange transportation for them. I called many times and then just gave up. The footage has remained with me ever since. In May of 1949, I was asked to film the 3rd autopsy. So that's the statement of the cameraman. So it's quite controversial how he could actually have this footage for such a long period of time. You think, well, there was quite a lot of things going on in 47 because you had the Army and the Air Force. They went their separate ways. It was all one sort of Army Air Force group before that. So it could have been lapses. He was also told apparently that not to mention about this footage until some superior person first mentioned it to you in conversation. So that might also explain why he had access to the footage. He may have even copied it, stolen it. Maybe that was all a cover story. But I think it's important that the fact that he's mentioned some names and things like that. It's that's an important thing. So we can actually look at a bit more detail. So some of the principal investigator, the main one was Philip Mansell on the right there. There's Busty Taylor in the middle there. He's more involved in the crop circle subject, but it overlaps with UFOs, and that's Reg Presley. He was in the Trogs, who did Love Is All Around and Wild Thing, you may remember. Sadly, he's not alive now, but he was very much interested in the alien autopsy. In fact, Ray Santilli, they became quite close friends on it, and he's a very important person in this story, as I'll go into. So he was, that's just a bit about Reg Presley, because he's, like I say, he had like a very, after having experience in crop circles and things like that, he really got into it, and he even brought out his own book. He contacted Ray around Christmas '94 about a Trogs reissue, and Ray tells him if Reg would be interested in seeing a film of footage of an alien autopsy. They got this controversial tent footage that I mentioned earlier, which was a bit confused the matters very much so, because it was very poor. Ray tells him, you haven't seen the best footage yet, and as soon as I have time I'll invite you up to see more, and he began telling him what he'd see. Then Reg goes on to describe the tent footage on live TV on the Anna Nick show to 17 million viewers. He mentions Ray's name, and within 8 hours the news has gone around the world. A lot of people obviously, when you say something sensational like you've got an alien autopsy, then you're going to get people's interest. And I know Philip, I should point out, he was through his help as well, he got that information out, but it did sort of get all out of control. Philip showed it at the Sheffield before event. Now, it was not till April that Reg finally viewed the famous footage we all know now, which is important because if you believe in the hoax story, that's when they claimed that they filmed it. So I'm going over the tent footage, but that was a little, you can see how poor it is, and you can actually watch that on YouTube, I believe. It actually featured in a sell-through DVD. So there was something going on, even then that was a red flag quite early on, that something happened where things were getting muddied, basically. So I'm going to go over that. Well, one thing that interesting that Keith Bateman said, which was like one of the people who helped make the that poor copy footage, was he said when the footage was released around the same time. I mean, this is when all the autopsy footage, not just that tent footage. He said that the footage was released. We suspected our phones were being tapped, and there was a night I was called to the alarm system at AK Music, where it appeared nothing had been touched. But we later realised files had been disturbed and tapes removed. Also, Santilli had told me that he had been asked quite a few questions from certain authorities. And there's certainly lots of claims that, if this was a hoax, why are people trying to break into people's, studios? And, but obviously Santilli knew he was onto something big, and he would have secured it. A lot of people, including Reg Presley, were telling him, you've got to be careful, because if this is real, then you could be involved with people, from all sorts of intelligence agencies trying to get that footage back. I'll go over that about the tent footage. But that's the benefactor, allegedly, that gave money to raise for the actual acquisition of the footage. Now, he sort of kind of disappeared. In fact, he never really appeared in the first place. I think there's very few, he hardly talked to anyone, this gentleman. I think French TV tracked him down in '95 for their TV special, but he's become very reclusive, and I did contact him recently on Facebook, funny enough, and he just likes his dogs, and he just seems to have totally rejected, the ways of the world. I believe that's because if he did procure the footage, then it may have been confiscated off of him. He put forward the money, and my belief is that he could never talk about it, and he has never really talked about it. In fact, he got very, very angry when the TV company tracked him down. He's a German-based business now. I think he was living in Hamburg or something at the time. But French TV tracked him down. He just wanted to be left alone. It's kind of a strange thing. Why would you have the greatest piece of footage in the world and sort of not want to talk to anyone? People might say that, that's because it's all a hoax. There's a counter-argument there, but that's not what I'm thinking. You could get the footage. I won't hide the fact that a lot of money was made off it. This went around the world, like 1 billion people saw it. In UFO English magazine, you could buy the VHS for £33, and maybe naively, 95, I wrote the check out, thought, great. Apparently there's not many of these actually that they did sell. I mean, I've got one of the original copies at home, but £33 was a lot of money for a VHS, even back in 95. So obviously, the idea was to market it originally just on VHS, not to sort of the big show that went around the world, so it got totally out of hand, really. Maybe he just didn't realise what it was involved in. Alien Autopsy, Fact or Fiction, one of the most popular shows I think it's ever been shown on the Fox network regarding this subject. And in fact, I mean, it's been claimed that it sparked a debate not since it's the Zapruder film. Like I said, it was made, presented by Star Trek's Jonathan Frakes. You've probably seen it. You can watch it on YouTube again if you want to revisit the whole thing. But it was seen. It was one extra 11.7 million viewers. You know, so this was really hot property, and it included analysis by a noted forensic pathologist. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on in the autopsy, and you think, well, if it's a fake, then surely someone will be able to tell if it's what it looks like a genuine autopsy, and possibly also special effects experts. Just going to get some water. So yeah, claim is that I value more sort of pathologists and surgeons, because while special effects experts are interesting, I think we should value more the surgeons and pathologists and what their opinion is. So yeah, Cyril Vecht was one of the people that appeared on the documentary, and he said he thought there was more surgeons than pathologists. A surgeon being a doctor who is trained to perform medical operations, while a pathologist examines a dead body and cuts it open to see how they died. And that kind of fitted in with a sort of a narrative of that, the secrecy level, that there would just be surgeons, and I'll go into a bit later. I'm going to play a video which is sadly departed Roger Lear. He was very much interested in alien implants and removing them from people, but he also had a very, so he was obviously a doctor and used to information like that. But he had an opinion about the alien autopsy
and the message.
Autopsy foot investigating is how people. Oh, I know this probably isn't your area of specialty, but one of the things we're investigating is how people feel about the alien autopsy footage. Do you have any opinions on that?
Well, yes, I do. I was in on it from almost the beginning. I interviewed Ray Santilli in London, and he said that he was in the music business, and he evidently is in the music business. I know what the current thoughts, that the body, was a construct made by a special effects artist. I'm sorry, but I don't believe it. I think somebody is taking credit for something they didn't do. If you ask my personal opinion. Now, I sat with about 17 other physicians when this came out, and we looked at it. We didn't recognize the internal organs either, surgeons or myself. But the techniques that were used to dissect the body are real techniques that we're trained to use in taking apart a human body. And those are they're little idiosyncrasies that if a cameraman was to film it and then have guidance from a special effects artist to build a dummy, they would have to have a tremendous amount of background knowledge. I mean, the money that would have to be spent to do something like this would be far more than what you would get out of it. And another one of the shots in the autopsy film, when the leg is raised and the knee is bent, if you look at it frame by frame, you'll see that the thigh externally rotates. Well, this is how it works in a human being. So again, in order to do this in an artificial way, you would have to employ the services of a kinesiologist, so that in 4 frames of the film, it would be so intricate you'd have to show the external rotation of the thigh. Well, again, it's not logical. It doesn't make sense to me. And, again, you ask my personal opinion, I think that this may have been a training film that, maybe some branch of the military was using for training physicians in the field, that when they came upon crash sites, and there was bodies, this is what would happen. So, I don't know. I don't think anybody will know truly until something happens down the line.
So as a physician, you feel like the procedures were really too accurate for it to be a hoax?
Exactly. It's just the techniques that were used for dissection and the way the tissues came apart. Now, I'm working on a a large screen film on the UFO subject in some of my work, and it's not a documentary, it's an entertainment film. But I'm well aware of what special effects artists can do. And for example, to make blood, you have instruments like a blood knife, and when you cut, it releases liquid that looks like blood. If you look again closely at this film, the blood that you see on the film, or whatever is supposed to be blood, does not come out of the knife. It comes from the inside of the tissues. So again, if you would have to be a true genius in the creation of an entity in which you could put little maybe latex blood vessels and have some fluid come out. And it's just too much work for what they got out of it.
And are many of your colleagues in the scientific community, are they in agreement on this?
Well, let's not say the scientific community, because the scientific community doesn't have much to do with subjects like this. But the medical community that is associated with me, that looked at the film, all was in agreement that they didn't know what it was, and that it did not represent something that we know is common pathology. You can have, for example, the multidactyly, more than one finger. One of the things that happens in nature when you have multidactyly is that you'll find one of two things. Either one finger is a clone of another. In other words, if we had two second fingers, that one would be exactly the same length as the other. If we look at the parabola of fingers on a human hand, it has a parabola. Fingers are not the same size. So when these things happen in nature as a mutation or a congenital defect, you would either see two that would be the same size, or the other kind is just a little stump of a digit that's left, and the stump can be amputated, and then the hand or the foot will appear normal. In the film, when they showed both the hand and the foot, there was a perfect parabola of the 6 digits. So that's another thing that's sort of strange.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I can say that my advice, my 2 cents, is that if you come across anybody, either in the field of ufology or government or in some other area that claims to be an expert on any of this stuff, and they'll tell you the answers, and you'll say definitively something, this is the way it is, my advice is to put a finger in each ear and run as fast as you can.
Thank you.
Great, yeah, that's Roger Lear. Sadly, I think he died a few years ago, but that was, I think, an interview in late 2007 or 8 or something around then. So even after all the hoax claims, he was still saying that, and that's, I really value the opinion. That's actually, the person who interviewed him was the daughter of one of the man who actually claims to have found the alien autopsy crash site. So that's really interesting. So there was lots of different opinions about. Some people thought it was a fake. Italian surgeons. The ufologist Maurizio Beata, who's on my Facebook page. I run the Alien Autopsy Facebook page, which you can just join. It's a public group. He certainly still has an interest in the subject, and he organised a private viewing of the Fat Santility footage with 2 Italian leading autopsy technicians. Of the 2 technicians, the youngest had already seen the material. He felt the being in the film was neither human nor a dummy. This reflects the opinion of Pierluigi Barma Bologna, a professor of pathological anatomy at the University of Turin, and Cesare said, as for my opinion, in keeping with that of other pathologists, I'm in favour of the hypothesis that it's not a human being in the order of 70%. What I do not think is that it is a human being in the autopsy. So, interesting. I'm going to go very quickly over this because you saw a bit of the footage, but it was all very accurate for the time period. That's I'm just going to go through it basically. Very distended stomach. Well, if you're going to hoax something, why are you going to put distended stomach? There's lots of things in this footage which are highly strange. But if you're trying to perpetrate a hoax and link it to Roswell, you just wouldn't do a being with 6 fingers and a distended stomach, and the ears. I think even greys don't generally, some of them don't, have ears as such. So this wasn't a grey as such. I mean, I know Dr. Wolf, is it? He mentions about these being called oranges. It's like another colour, but obviously more pinky orange colour beings. So obviously we can't tell what colour it was, but obviously much a lighter colour. And you can just see how graphic it all is, the burn marks and all sorts of things going on. This is not an easy thing to hoax if you think it's a hoax. They removed the lens, so that's very interesting. I got Colonel Corso talking about how they back engineered. Not necessarily believe what was written in that book. I think there is some bits of disinfo in Colonel Corso's The Day After Roswell, but I do go along with the idea that things were back engineered as claimed, because that's exactly what you would do, and you'd compartmentalise it and give it out to certain groups and institutions and stuff. So again, very graphic stuff if it's a hoax. I mean, I know a lot of special effects people are impressed with it, or the claim that they hit this being with the butt of a rifle. There's actually a clearer image where you can see clearly bruising. There's some strange thing like a crystal taking out of it. There's some very, very funny. I mean, obviously it looks like a female sexual organ as well, and you might be able to see that the hand's partially decapitated on the left-hand side as well. And obviously there's no navel when you see it before it's opened up. So there's this implies the idea that it's a clone of some sort. There was a microphone hanging down. The danger sign, actually, I mean, this was all vintage 1947, as far as we could tell. Pretty much worked out. The sign said maximum working time and something of so many hours, possibly a phone number underneath here. That's not been officially said by anyone, but I sort of managed to sort of freeze it, and that's what I worked it out to be, and I think that's pretty accurate, maximum working time. So there's a curly telephone, and that was found to be around, I think, 1945, and you can see that there, 1946, even they had it in a car. Those Yanks are always well ahead of us, aren't they? Yeah. So I don't know when we got it in England, all these curly phones, but they were doing things much more earlier. So everything did match up, and there was so much detail, even the notes, which, like the Rainy Mirror, we haven't quite got to the stage where we can read what's being written here, see what's been written, but there's, for every prop you put into this, it's going to cost a huge amount of money, and there's a danger of making it, giving it away, if you believe it's a hoax. I don't believe it's a hoax. I think the footage is genuine. I'm not saying it's an alien. I don't know what it is, but it's certainly very interesting. Might be real, others simply weren't sure. Robert Irving is quite a sceptic, in Crop Circle he said something quite profound. He said, perhaps the strangest of all was the sight of the awkward mix of known believers in the ET hypothesis, known disbelievers, believers, fakers of it, innocent ostentationists, and a downright disingenuous, all-hissing hoax at a piece of evidence that seemed to me as impressive as any I'd seen. But never in my lifetime I had expected to witness the subsequent cooperation between traditional adversaries, all seemingly galvanised into an unprecedented gush of agreement, adopting what one of them called a proper sceptical attitude that the film was a transparent fraud. For whatever is responsible for the film has now provided ufologists with what I'd assumed they'd always wanted, firm, enticing, conclusive evidence that something out there had somehow got here. So it's a good point. And there's also a first autopsy, which I mentioned earlier, and it's such a red flag why this has never been seen. It was shown to Maurizio and Reg on April 26 by Chris Kerry, which is one of Ray's associates. Philip Manton and his wife were shown it in Santelli's office. It was a similar length to the second autopsy, but no severed hand or leg damage. Santelli thought, due to its graphic nature, it wouldn't be shown on TV. So apparently there was more sort of in the pubic regions shown and more sort of gynecological views and stuff. It was said to be owned by Volker Spielberg, who has never released it. And even the person who claims he hoaxed it, I think he's saying, Volker's still got hold of this and he's not releasing it. He says, the man who claims he hoaxed it, which I'm going to just briefly go into, claims that it's because the first autopsy showed it wasn't showing pathologists working. It was showing pathologists and not surgeons, which it should have been, which is just a bizarre thing to say, and that they had to totally redo it all and make another body. Just so many things don't add up in this whole thing, and I'm not sure if I can go into everything. But there are some stills of the first autopsy, so you can see the legs intact and stuff. cameraman said, the third autopsy, I was asked to film the third autopsy, and the fourth freak lived for 2 more years. The autopsy was performed at Washington in a big auditorium in the presence of scientists from various states, race. Where have they kept the creature in prison for 2 years? I don't know, but I heard they had been able to communicate with him, but without words, non-verbal, whatever that means. And there's all these other little bits and pieces, like where the film was in the box with these seals. And it's got, like, some of them said, I think you can read Truman there, and there's allegedly a Truman footage. And there's a big controversial about it being authenticated. I could go all about that, but it was never authenticated. My belief was that it was actually confiscated. That's why it was never authenticated. That's my belief. I mean, Bob Shell did some work saying it was. There was a leader bit of footage, but not with the actual alien in it, but it did seem to show that it was from 1927, 47 or 67. And it was absolutely massive around this time, 95, really big. And that was like first issue of Encounters. You may remember that magazine. That's an updated article from about 2002, so it was still, even then, no one had any answers. It just kept putting, it was never solved for me, and it never has been. But, Philip did some extra work on it, new eyewitness, all sorts of stuff. So it's still ongoing, basically. There's this person called, in that same issue, he talks about this guy, Frank Salas of Canon Video, who claims he was actually a bit of a third party, and he did actually transfer it also. There are other leads to be followed. This guy sort of disappeared, though, so don't know where he is. Reg Presley, very important, because he was quite close friends to Ray Santilli, and he brought out this great book, and it's got a great chapter on the alien autopsy, and he tells an intriguing story. He says Reg was warned Reg warned Ray to make more than one copy of the footage in case he was burgled. Ray first laughed it off, but then one day he claimed he had a call from someone claiming to work for T42, an organisation made up, so he said, of the American and English Secret Services. Ray's office and film studio were both burgled. Someone was trying to get hold of the master copy, but as luck would have it, missed each time. After these burglaries, Ray was pestered again by these gentlemen who were contacting him every day, and he finally relented. A man showed up and watched the film intensely. This is before it all came out, about, I guess it would be maybe April, May time. A man showed up and watched the film intensely and said, would it be okay if he came back later with his superior? Strangely, on their return, they now took it less seriously and began to run it down. And they said to him, of course, you realise we have received dozens of these kinds of films this year alone, and if you tried to pass this off as a real, you'd probably get sued, which is just a highly strange thing to say, because certainly you don't get dozens of films of alien autopsy. There was nothing up to that point that had ever been shown of that kind ever before. So I think basically they were as they said they were, and after that they may have confiscated. This is what Reg said in his book. I believe Ray had personally seen all the footage at the time and even shown all of it to the T42 guys, because soon after that meeting, when the President Truman footage came to be taken out of the canister, it had become stuck together, impossible to play. So Ray spoke about the Truman footage in too much detail for me to believe he hadn't seen it. I believe he was threatened with his life that day and took the Truman film out of play. So that's quite, obviously controversial if you've got an image of President Truman, because that would actually, you couldn't hoax that, basically, because obviously it would be too hard to do, really. So the idea is that, it was taken away, and that's why they couldn't ever date it. And so Ray would have to play along with the idea, we're going to get it all done. But because so many people had seen the footage already, to all his associates and whatever, the cat was out of the bag. So it was damage limitation, I believe, from the information, the intelligence agencies. They had to go along with it, but they also had to stop it there and make it so that there was no further release, contamination in the subject. But so many people had seen it that in some ways saved Ray Santilli's life, I believe. And his claims of a crash site, Ed Gurman, whose daughter you saw interview Roger Lear, and because the actual cameraman, believe it or not, he was a real person, and that's the claim. He was actually filmed in an interview, and these are images from beyond Roswell. So I'm just going to go through this quite quickly. The crash site found witnesses. So basically, he found a crash site. I'll go over that. It's all sorts of it. You can read more about One Sky. It's got an interesting story in the book Beyond Roswell. These are images. You can see six-fingered creatures from the ancient Indian, So it's not like it's unprecedented, although six-fingered beings hadn't been talked about in ufology. There are some of the odd cases, so it's not totally, we get the whole 6 foot, we've got the metric system, and so there's something to the idea that something was calculated with the number of sixes and things like that. There's more information about that in the book. A lot of things, Trinity explosion, a lot of people say, how did the things crash and that, but it could be that, the Manhattan Project was responsible for that in 1945. There's also other UFO crashes. It's not just about this. I mean, people talk about Roswell, but this is a great book by Paul Blake Smith. You can also get a book about the Aztec crash in 1948, which a lot of people debunked at the time, but now Aztec is seen as very valid, and I think Scott Ramsey has done the book for that one. So check out the Aztec story, and this one as well. I think Paul's done another book, I've got that one as well, but this is a controversial one in 1941, so years before Roswell, so these things could be crashing. So he claims that the Vatican had one, and then even before the military, and they never gave it up. That's one of the things. There was even a picture involved in the Missouri crash, but strangely went missing. A lot of evidence, as you notice, as soon as you get hold of something, things happen, gets confiscated, get warned about and all sorts, and that's a recreation of the picture. I'm now running out of time. All right for 5 more minutes, Ben? Okay. Cheers. Cameron was interviewed, so everyone wanted to interview him, but his main requirement was not to get interviewed because he wanted to keep his privacy, but everyone kept saying that it was important. And he did appear, and you can actually watch it on YouTube. It has been uploaded just recently. It took me ages to actually see it. And the ironic thing is, it was filmed so poorly that you could actually make out pretty much the cameraman. And that's his face, basically. So if you're going to hoax something, I mean, some people think, well, maybe this part was just hoaxed and the autopsy was real. But I actually think there's some truth that this was actually the cameraman, and he was asked some questions, but it doesn't add anything too much more to what we know. And I have to do this very quickly because obviously that was the way until 2006, and there was an Emlyn-Investigates, the show about the true story about the alien autopsy, and the story had now changed. It was 95% of the footage was a recreation with some real clips mixed in, and they're looking very sheepish in this video. It's worth watching. That's Santilli and Shoefield, who now changed their story. They're not saying it was a complete hoax, maybe because they were worried about getting sued. So you might have been given legal room. I actually think the intelligence agency said that you had to come forward with this preposterous story that they had 5% real images in it, and it was just a really bizarre thing. You can watch it on YouTube. It's called Emlyn-Investigates, and John Humphreys claims he made the models. That's supposed to be him circa 95. There's no real proof that, that even that it was what we saw in the film, other than sort of a mould he was making. This guy came forward saying about making bits, using bits from Smithfield Market or whatever it was. And he looked, again, a very dubious, looks like some sort of government agent for me. Very brief 2-second clip on the video of some of that footage, but clearly not the same, unless, I think they're saying, oh, this was a mole, not the real one. But obviously that's very poor, but you only see this for a couple of seconds. It's so hackneyed and so fake that you just think, oh, this is just terrible. This guy claimed to be the guy in the window, the viewing window, Gareth Watson. I don't think it matched up. If you look at the images of him, it doesn't match up. One of the biggest arguments I have with the magician who claims that he hoaxed it, this is not the same person. This picture on, this bit's been superimposed with Photoshop to see what it would like if you compare the two. But this photo, I'll just go back, because that image is taken from 2006, and they allegedly filmed this in a flat in Camden in 1995. But that him in 90, he'd have to take 11 years off that person, basically. If they're claiming he's been filmed in 1995, you'd have to take 11 years of his age. And I think he's quite a young guy there. I'm thinking mid-30s, early 30s. Take 10 years off that, and then he's supposed to be this guy on the left. It doesn't match up. It's not quite clear. It's better on my screen here, but the ears don't match up. The brow of the nose. I mean, I've contacted all these people. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they don't want to talk to me. Funny enough, I don't know why. There's been claims that this guy, one of the Majestic 12s, was involved, and he was one of the people in the surgeon's room. So you had the Anton Deck film, funny enough, came out at the same time as that documentary, very controversial. Literally, like the April Fool's weekend, 2006, everything was released. It looked like a psyop to me. It looked like it was a a hit piece, documentary, then a film release. Ant and Dec, everyone's favourite Geordie comedians, got their first film role. And of course, it was all very, apparently John Humphrys worked on, so he's claiming John Humphrys he did the models for this one, which aren't bad. Obviously, they're more cartoony looking, but why can't you just recreate what you originally did, 11 years before, if that's what you did it? And they even got the danger sign wrong. You think, well, he could have at least said, why not make the danger sign what it was originally said? So there's so many things when you go into it that it's all very suspicious. Obviously he's done two here, probably one with a leg intact or whatever, so a lot of work going into it. If this is all lies, then obviously a lot of money's been thrown at it to make a film and everything. That's Luke, which is Gary's son. I reached out to these people. I mean, his son's quite a successful photographer, and Gary has a son who's an actor, both called Luke, funny enough. I reached out to them, and I know they've got my messages, but I just want to hear their version of events, because they were very young when they were growing. When this happened, they were about both 7 years old, I believe. Born, funny enough, around the same time, but no one's talking. I've reached out to Ray, and he says, "Oh, it's time to move on. I don't want to, because I opened the page, my Facebook page, on the 20th anniversary, which was 2015." So I just wanted to get all the information. I was questioning it because I didn't think ufology had done enough to actually look into the claims. And I know this. I should just quickly touch on Bob Shell, who was involved in the Kodak investigation. He was quite, very good, involved in cameras and all about expert. But he's serving, I think it's 32 years now for manslaughter, basically just supplying drugs to his girlfriend at the time, who died of an overdose. But it's all sort of lurid claims coming up. He was having sex with a dead body. I mean, this is one of the key players in the whole alien autopsy subject. And I don't know, Philip doesn't mention it in his books, but I think it's important to realise if you do get too close to something, you can be framed and all sorts. So we know about lots of people who end up in prison, just for, like Stan Romanek talking about planting child pornography and things like that. I'm not saying all these cases are true or not. I'm just saying that, we know how the state works and how they can frame people, plant drugs and stuff like that. So was Bob targeted for giving credibility to alien autopsy? I think he was. There's also other witnesses came forward, and I'm not sure if I've got enough time to show the video, unfortunately. But if you look up Mike Maloney, he talks about visiting Disney in 1978 in the offices of Disney, and actually being shown another version of the same alien autopsy, but another one. And he said there was a moving one as well. And he claims this is a serious Mirror journalist in 1978. So there's about four other witnesses, who've come forward and claim they've seen the footage. There's my friend who's a magician who claims he actually made the alien autopsy, basically, and he can prove it because he's drawn some pictures apparently, but I don't even think he drew those pictures. And we've had some arguments, and he was on my page, and we got angry, and I think he wanted to sue me for something. I don't know if I have a different opinion or something. And there's some images. I know his book's supposed to be coming out, but he's been saying that for the last 10 years. He's doing a talk in Leicester Square if you want to come along for the show in September. I think it'll cost you £30. That's supposedly the house in Camden, all rigged up with the tent in the back and everything. And things have an answer for everything. But if you actually listen to his radio interviews, it's very highly dubious, and I could be here all day literally. Some of his other pictures, not so good pictures. A bit more about him there. He was kicked out of the Magic Circle and stuff like that. So I did sort of, I've questioned some of his things, and obviously he got angry, but I linked to some story on Facebook about it, and I know now he's back in the Magic Circle, but just questioning him, because no one's heard of him. If you know about magicians, David Blaine and that, it's quite a sceptical attitude with the paranormal, like James Randi, Penn and Teller, they're always quite critical. And Magic Circle itself is a bit like, like a Freemasons. It's all like a little club type thing. So I think he was compromised. He may have even been working, but for me, he's definitely a disinfo agent. He claims he designed and directed the film. He made the autopsy table literally out of metal. Made the biohazard suits. He was his girlfriend, who he claims worked for the government, and conveniently she now refuses to talk. She spoke to surgeons and pathologists, and even played the role of nurse. She got her mum to write in a 1940s style. John Humphrys made the aliens. His friend Greg was a soldier holding the debris. The set was his girlfriend's house. The first footage was ditched due to an incorrect medical procedure, as I said. he himself, the magician, made the second model how an air bubble appeared, and John was dispatched to get a sheep's leg joint. So they worked around the story that because there was an air bubble, then that's how the leg was suddenly worked on. If you believe that. Both bodies were said to have been cut up and put in bins around London. And the other thing is, where's all the evidence? There's all the props, and it's all very convenient. There's no sort of there's all the outtakes from the footage. There's all this stuff. There's nothing to be seen. Maybe we'll talk about this in September. Maybe it has got extra evidence. He says that the debut footage was designed by him and based in Greek letters, blah blah blah. He flew to LA to meet Schufer, where he found an 80-year-old tramp. So he was claiming that interview with the stranger, with the cameraman, was it was an 80-year-old tramp that cleaned him up, and apparently turned out to be an old actor, and they gave him a false nose. So, I don't know, it's like the bigger the lie, sometimes the more people believe it. I'm just not really buying any of it. There's someone who claimed to have known the cameraman, and that's he puts his name and 1995 to make you accept that was actually him in 1995, which I find kind of funny. But one of my big points is, I'm just winding up now, so thanks for giving me a bit of extra time. Greg Simmons was the guy. Apparently he's filmed a little video of him we'll be showing in London, but the biggest bone of contention I always had, I found an image of him on Facebook. I couldn't really see his hands, but apparently this is supposed to be the same hands, because obviously he's the same person, so surely as your hands don't really age after you reach a certain age, they should clearly match with whatever these quite strong long fingers. So I always said to the magician, well, you can just prove, you can make this, it can all be over now if you just show this guy's hands, as far as this debris footage is concerned, because that should be exactly him. But strangely, he doesn't really want to. He wants to keep saying, I'll do it when my own time or whatever. So there's long distinctive fun, so they would have to make. So my conclusion is the alien autopsy is real, it's fake, there are both elements of truth and deception, which could well be the case. Was it released by a pro-disclosure group? Could be the case also to gauge the reaction of the general public, as some claim. I propose there must be some truth to it, as such a concerted effort was put into trying to say it was a hoax without any real evidence. For such an amazing piece of footage, is it not strange that only one person wants to talk about it? I've reached out to everyone, and I'm getting blanked, which is very, strange, It's the greatest hoax of all time, let's face it. I mean, it's better than the Bigfoot Patterson footage, 68 or whatever, because it's 16 minutes. You've got to hoax something. Would you really make it 16 minutes long and then make a 3-minute debris footage? I don't think so. Wasn't a similar tactic used with Doug and Dave in trying to discredit the crop circle phenomenon? I think pretty much the same thing happened. As soon as they got an interest in it, they had to come out with a cover story, but it took them 11 years. Maybe they're waiting for all the researchers to do their work so they could then counterclaim, everything they've done, and that's very much what the magician's done. I think the Ray Santilli part of the story was to sort of discredit him, so Ray's not allowed really to talk about the subject, that's my opinion, and that he came forward the idea that 5% was real, so he wouldn't be sued, because he obviously made a lot of money. But I think he was, got at, and he's just, no one's talking about it. So it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Don't let anyone tell you something is true or false without first looking into it yourself. And that's kind of sums up the whole thing, really. People get into anagrams and find messages in there, and I think it's quite apt that Ray Santilli comes out as saintly liar. So maybe he was telling some truth at some point, but then he was forced to sort of toe the line, so to speak. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thanks for giving me a chance to talk. Thank
you. Colin Woolford, ladies and gentlemen. Now, just a quick trip to the bar and back, because we've got a lot more to come, including an extra speaker who's going to produce just a mini feature, but he's going to be on after Miles. Miles will be on next. I know we don't really have, there's no time limit to get out here, but I know some of you are going to have to leave by 7, so I want to hopefully finish by 7 p.m. So
parking's longer. If you put money in, it takes you up to 12 o'clock.
Is it? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
I think it's, so see you in a couple of minutes.
£2 in.
Yeah, it's only valid to 6 p.m, so you can park for free after 6.
Yes,
after 6.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I saw something about
Sorry,
the girl on it. There's a girl, what was that about?
Do you mean the... the magician claims that his girlfriend... Because if you actually look at the footage, I should have mentioned that you can see the breasts of one of the nurses on the actual footage. So there's obviously was a woman involved, because one of the nurses, you can actually see his breast. So yeah, his idea, his claim is that his girlfriend, who worked for the government in a flat in Camden, which Ben had been to, was involved in a lot of the sort of details about the autopsies and how they were done, and you know, she got hold of records and you know what sort of pathologist type instruments or surgeons instruments and all this sort of stuff. So she does seem to be a main player, which is, you know, she's sort of almost mythical status, like the cameraman himself. That, you know, we've never been able to get the cameraman, like in the same way we've never been able to get hold of this magician's girlfriend. But maybe she'll come forward and explain all that, you know.
Yeah, because you had a sheet of, and it mentioned it. I just happened to see about the girl.
Yeah,
I've never heard of her.
Well, only because I mean, on the actual footage, I don't know if you can actually. I don't know if it's if I pull. I can't remember. It's quite clear. You can see it's a woman. I think it's the one. I think they say this is John Humphreys as one of the people in the surgeon things and like that, but it just doesn't add up for me. But maybe she'll come forward in September. Maybe, who knows?
Anybody else?
Yeah, so Leicester Square, you know, do a free advert for him. You can go and see him, Leicester Square Theatre. Got a question, Dave?
Yeah.
Go on, shout it out.
If, you know the panel where they're supposed to put, it shows like a control panel where there's an indentation. Did that?
Apologies for the abrupt ending to that particular film. That was Colin Woolford there, with some very contentious but very interesting information. I want to thank Miles Johnston there for his camera work, which was very, very good indeed, very, very helpful to this production. And thank you all for watching. There will be another video in this series very soon. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.